Hi everyone, this is Kim with Abundant Life Tarot, and I wanted to talk about my deck collection, 2019 thoughts, and I probably at some point later in the year will do a full-on 2019 tarot and oracle deck collection and Lenormand, where I show all the decks that I have. It'll be a great time for me to really take stock and do inventory of what I've got, see where I want to gift them. Maybe I want to do, giveaways with some of the decks, or maybe I want to keep them, who knows. But that'll come later in the year. And one of the reasons why is I am waiting for 3 Kickstarter decks and 1 pre-order deck to come, and once those 4 decks come on in, then at that point I'll feel like, okay, at that point it'll be complete. I really do feel that way because I think I'm getting to a point now where I've kind of refined my taste on what I want in my decks and what I'm not really wanting in my decks, and so it's making it more difficult for decks to be purchased. It's rare now that I'm coming across a deck that I'm like, I have to have. I know it seems like it's not because I have unboxings, but a lot of the unboxings I've done there like earlier in the year, things have now, with the exception of like the Herb Crafters Tarot, things have pretty much slowed down for me because the decks that are coming are definitely going to be a part of my tarot deck collection. There are 2 of them is Chris Ann Donnelly's the Light Seers Tarot and her Muse Tarot, the Muse Tarot. And so I've been lusting after those decks for a long time, as is the Bone Stone by Avalon. I've been, waiting for that one, and I have high hopes that it'll be later in the year that it'll be done. And because I chuckle because people are like really up in arms. Some people, small amount of people, are up in arms about how long it's taking for the deck to be made. But I knew going in, because this was her first deck and she was doing it on her own, I just intuitively knew it was going to be a long process. So I just was able to be more patient with that project than with any other project that I backed. And then I have the This Might Hurt Tarot, that is a Kickstarter deck. So when they come in, I will do my tarot collection and see what maybe needs to say goodbye, or what I need to start using because I forgot how much I loved it. Who knows? But I started thinking about, as I was thinking about that, thinking about also, are there any oracles I feel like adding? And there's literally no oracles out there right now that I'm remotely drawn to. I have double oracle decks than I do tarot. I'm much more pickier now about my tarot, and tarot is like a much more, I don't know, with oracle, I feel like oracle can have several different voices depending on the deck and the style or whatever, because there's no structure. So I feel like, I don't feel as bound to making sure that a tarot deck's going to really work for me because of its structure, like I am with the oracle. So I started thinking about, now that I've been collecting decks for a while, and I proudly call myself a tarot deck collector, I am. I have decks that I love and adore as collector's items. I sought out for them to have the first edition. I enjoy collecting tarot decks and crystals. That is my thing. I am going to shout it loud and proud. Now, with that being said, my husband's like, you said you're going to just keep your decks to just this cabinet here, and now we have a shelf, albeit decorative, but decks are going there. I have another little pocket one, the shelf next to this one. You can't see it. And then I have downstairs where I have my working decks that are near my reading table that I can pull quickly. But it's, I think that shelf stores maybe, I don't know, 20 decks, I'm thinking. I don't know. Anyways, I kind of broke my own promise. So I'm like, no, I don't want to have so many decks that I don't even know what I really have in my collection. And I don't even really get to touch it. I really want to be able to touch certain decks. You know, it would be nice to touch them all if I could throughout the year. So here is like my little list of, now that I've been really going through what I like, what I don't like, this is what it will take for me to have to buy a deck if it meets all of these criteria. Okay, first, tarot size. Whether you're an oracle or you are at a tarot deck, I want it tarot size. Here's the Divine Muses Oracle, and this is tarot size, but it's an oracle. I prefer oracles to be like this. I prefer this cardstock, a little on the flimsier side, but it kind of feels like it has like some sort of, not plastic, but it just feels, I don't know, it doesn't feel super flimsy like you would think. I type a lot. I type fast. With that being said, that wears on my wrists and my hands because I type a lot for work, my 9-to-5 job, and then I type a lot for my tarot business, for email readings or just emailing people back and forth. So I can't blow out my hands and wrists on large cards because that's just not gonna work. I can't. So I'll fix my pillow here. It's much better. So I can't do that. I need tarot size. So yeah, standard tarot size for a tarot deck, standard tarot size for oracle would be what would shoot the deck right up to the top of my list. Next up, I would prefer not glossy. Now, this deck, the Delta Enduring, is a little bit glossy, a little bit, but not really. I think I'm thinking of gloss like the Blue Angel, some of the Blue Angel decks, although they've started making matte decks, and as is Hay House or what have you. But Schiffer did the gloss, and it just, I riffle shuffle, so it makes it a little difficult to riffle shuffle, and that's probably my biggest gripe with it. So there's that. Number 3, but really should have been number 1, but I didn't want to rewrite my list and waste paper. It's diversity or inclusion. Actually, it really is now number 1, but it just happened to be as I'm jotting down my notes here, that's what it came up. But I have some decks that lack diversity, but the majority of them I'd like to think has diversity. And now, to cut the mustard, to get through to my shopping cart, to get into my shopping cart, diversity has to be a part of it. Inclusion and bonus points if you're melanated, like fully melanated. That's like, and modern and melanated. But, you know, it's wishful thinking, I suppose. But that is super important. Like, and I would say probably the first 5 is the like most important things on my list here. So yeah, I'll have to put these as my numbers here. So okay, next up is minimal nudity. Now I have some straight up decks that are quite nude, like nudity is all over the place, like my Cosmic Tribe Tarot. I am not using that deck for client readings. That deck is used for myself or for friends. So I have certain decks that have quite a bit of nudity, and I'm okay with that because I'm not going to use them. But going forward, I feel like I have enough of the decks with nudity. I need decks that are a little more universal that I can use for client readings. So it's not that I have anything against nudity. Actually, I don't. Actually, I love nudity in my tarot decks, believe it or not. But, you know, I have to make sure that they're appropriate. And sometimes I'm doing readings out for the public, and I don't know who might come up and bring themselves and their children around as they get a reading. You know what I'm saying? So there's that. And then number 5, artwork that is evocative. that I prefer, well, I can't even say that, because there could be some simple art that could really conjure up my imagination, or it could really stir something up inside of me. I'm trying to see if I can find something that's evocative, that's like, wow, it kind of hits you and you're like, oh wow, I am, okay, here's the Delta Enduring, the Devil card. For me, this is evocative. It evokes an emotion. Look, there's the police card. This is also set in like maybe Louisiana, the South, of, you know, the southern states in the United States. And then you've got this black guy who's walking, and you know, who's the devil in this, you know? Is it the cop car, or is it the person walking? What's going on? You know, all of that. Now, this may not work for everybody for a devil card, but for me it does, because I have certain points of reference in my own story that I pull from with this devil card. So there's that. And let's see. Sorry, I was looking. Okay. Now, like the next ones are, again, all of these options have to be met now for me to consider a deck, whether it's Oracle or Tarot. But these next ones are like, okay, if you didn't have these, you might still make the wish list. But the first 5 now are just super important, and you won't make the wish list if that's not it. Like, I really don't like gloss that much, because I really like to riffle shuffle that much, that glossy decks will just no longer be. So, if, you know, no longer be where I'm purchasing them, I'll say. And number 6 is I prefer opulent settings in the art, or just opulence, or a lot of lush colors, or vibrant, you know, like, not necessarily vibrant, but just where it's like the images are telling a story. And that even can happen in more simplified artwork. Like the fountain has, let me pull it out. The fountain has simple artwork, but it's still telling a story. The Four of Swords. I haven't really been using this deck lately, and I really should start. I mean, I feel bad. It's one of those things, again, it's like with your collection. You want to be able to see which ones, maybe the ones that I'm not even using are like blocking the ones I should be using. It's the Lovers. You see, it's still telling a story. Ultra modern, ultra simple, or not ultra, it's not simple, but modern contemporary lines, angles here, but it's still telling the story. I need that. That's what I want for my decks. I'm not gonna really compromise on that, even though I said you might make the wish list if you didn't make number 6, but I don't know. I want to be able to not look at a tarot deck and have to really fight on what it means, or especially an oracle. And there's a pet peeve of mine lately with certain oracles is they'll have some crazy obscure sentence or meaning, and you're like, I don't have any point of reference for this. This is something you came up with. And it's like, I want to be able to use this oracle deck because the images are gorgeous, but you either don't have a keyword and I don't know where to go with this, or the keywords or key phrases, I just don't know where to go with this. So they will now be cut. I'm not dealing with that anymore. So number 7, the deck, and I've talked about this before, it has to be a good shuffler. I need a deck that is going to shuffle easily, riffle shuffle. I'm not going to riffle shuffle now, but overhand and riffle shuffle wonderfully. The reason being is I use exclusively jumpers in my tarot readings, and my clients don't mind. That's my preference on how I get cards. So the deck has to be one that lends itself to being able to have cards that jump. I get jumpers with ones that are glossy, but to overhand shuffle is difficult. This one is not as glossy, so it's not that bad. And some people, they are really picky about the backs. I am a little more forgiving about the backs. So the backs didn't go on my top 11 list because, you know, it doesn't bother me that much. Also, that doesn't bother me so much is borders. Some people, that would be like a deal breaker. Deal breakers for some people is backs and borders. Not a deal breaker for me. So there's that. Yeah, I don't mind borders. So that didn't make the list. So usually I trust that the artist will pick a beautiful back, or the deck creator, and if they didn't pick one necessarily to my liking, as long as I like what's on the front, I don't really care. I actually really love the back of this one, by the way, which is why this is why it's one of my top decks, because it met all of my criteria, with the maybe with the exception of one. The next step on my criteria is I want thinner cardstock, again, to aid in the shuffleability of the deck, I should say. Number 9, what's important to me is guidebooks that fit into their deck boxes. Because I have limited, or I could probably like negotiate with my husband and get like shelves built for more decks, but that's not what's happening here. So I am now like, no. If I do end up getting a deck, it would be my preference that going forward, the guidebooks will fit into the boxes, and the boxes will be small. Like, I love that about this deck, the Moonchild. The Moonchild has the deck in here and the guidebook. Chunky, yes. Heavy, yes. But it works, and it's a good size that fits easily in anyone's shelf. On anyone's shelf, I say. And number 10, smaller packages, which I mentioned. I like the smaller packages for my tarot and for my oracle because, again, of storage issues. As my kids move out, yeah, sure, I could have a whole room devoted to tarot, but I don't want my whole room to be filled with it. I actually want to just have, I really want to trim down my collection quite a bit, but we'll see how and when that happens. The smaller packages, if deck creators would just be a little more cognizant of that, that would be most appreciative. I get it though. I get the pull and the call for the big boxes, the big lush, you know, packaging and all of that. Love presentation. It's just not really practical. And it drives up the cost. It drives up the cost sometimes, you know, quite a bit, to the point for me it's not even worth it, because especially if it's a tarot deck, lately, if a deck comes with a guidebook and it doesn't fit, or the deck is just in a tuck box and then it has a guidebook, I usually don't even get the guidebook anymore. And I know I was going through a phase where I had to get the guidebook to go with it, but I just don't. It's tarot. It's my own interpretations at the end of the day. The oracle, I really command and demand. I don't command and demand, but I really would prefer that it would be in the same box, you know, a little booklet size. That's just me. And then last but not least, number 11 is price. And I touched upon it before about, you know, what drives up the cost sometimes is these fancy big books, these big old boxes, you know, the card stock being so thick when I really just want to riffle shuffle it. I don't need it to be so dang thick. The price, and then shipping. Oh my gosh, guys, shipping. Whew. So I'm fortunate to live in the U.S. where a lot of deck creators reside. And, you know, if you're using Amazon or, you know, if it's a mass-produced deck, you could probably get some sort of free shipping out here, which is great. But oftentimes, I, being a deck collector, really like the indie decks. I feel more of a call to collect those. I do have working decks. I'm looking up at the top, like my Celtic Tarot. That is a working deck that's mass-produced. I have a few mass-produced decks that are my workhorses, but often my oracles are usually independent, with the exception of like Doreen Virtue's Romance Angels, which is out of print, by the way. Who would have thunk it that we would be seeing the day that Doreen Virtue's decks are out of print? Crazy, right? Crazy. I mean, not all of them, because of course it's a cash cow still. But like her Romance Angels, I now regret. There was one at one point I was gonna buy a backup copy because mine is so worn and so used, and I didn't, and now I'm beating myself up over it. I'm hoping that they release it under a Radley Valentine's name, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. So there you go with the deck collection 2019 thoughts. I'm not going to beat myself up about collecting. If I'm on vacation and I see a deck I just have to have, I'm not going to deny myself. But it really needs to meet my little criteria. I'm going to save my criteria list in my phone so I can consult it. So that way, when I get an urge to go shopping online in the middle of the night, I'm like, let me look at my list. Do you make the cut? So, folks, tell me, do you have a criteria list for your deck collection habit? Also, maybe you do depth year. How are you doing with your depth year? How's that going for you? I really am planning on 2020 being my depth year, where I've got all the decks I need and want. That's it. I don't care how good you're looking. I'm married to the decks I got. So let me know. Let me hear from you on your criteria. What makes a deck go from maybe no to you're in my cart right now. I'm hitting the buy button right now. I want to hear from you. Thank you all so much for watching. So much love. Many blessings. Bye.